Hello, I'm Christopher Martins, and welcome to the premiere episode of my new show, Entertainment with Ensigns. Today, we are going to take a look at the ensign of Iceland. And while that happens, your television is about to explode! Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Christened Music Podcast, where if it's listenable, it's christenable. I'm your host, Chris Martins. Today, we are going to take a look at Björk's, or Björk if you're feeling fancy, Vespertine. This is the fourth studio album from legendary Icelandic electronic pop and avant-garde singer-songwriter Björk. Well, it's the fifth if you count the one she made as a child. And I had no idea what to expect. I just knew Björk from mainstream media's depiction of her as some weird, obscure artist. A reductionist look into Björk's career, yes, but it's at least a bit true to newbies like myself. Once I finally took the plunge, I was a little confused about what I had just heard, as I had never heard something like this album before. But that didn't deter me much. In fact, I really like Vespertine. I do feel the tracks sort of sound similar to each other, and I still liked what I heard. The production is very interesting and deep sounding. The composition does the most minimalist and the most maximalist I've seen an album do in a decent bit, and it doesn't fall on its face in the process, but shines. The lyrics are very avant-garde and a bit abstract to the point where I didn't really get it at first, but from what I could understand, Vespertine is a really personal, beautiful expression of love in musical form. This record relies on its beauty, and because of that, it is home to some of the most beautiful pieces of music I've ever heard. It puts me at ease, and it makes me feel warm and fuzzy. I put on this album and I am immediately greeted with a very lush production style. The electronic beats in the back are cavernous and powerful, but never overpowering. They never overpower Björk's vocals or anything else. Even on the more driving tracks, such as Pagan Poetry, the bass is never overpowering, but it sits below everything else in the mix, making for a solid foundation. In fact, there is no element of this record that is in any way overpowering, at least with production. This is a very quiet album that only gets loud when it wants to, especially with how it handles crescendos with strings. There are strings and choral sections that are mixed beautifully, fitting in with everyone else. They both sound very clear and full, adding to a very epic sound. The vocals and other melodies are almost always on top, and they are clear when they want to play lead. I found a few plosives in the vocal recording, which is definitely very prominent in the just vocal sections, such as Pagan Poetry with the sounds, which I disliked at first, but now I'm coming around to. Keeping those plosives in the recording adds a bit of a passionate edge to this soothing album, which I really, really like about it. Effects on this record are often found in the beats. There are synthetic parts of this record that dance around your ears. They're everywhere on this record, but they are mostly found at the very beginning, especially with those little purring percussive noises. Vocal effects are pretty effective on this album too. Björk's voice is always clear, but clarity alone would make for a boring record. There are two effects that she uses when she wants to abandon the whole straight clarity thing. Reverb and the PA effect she does on It's Not Up to You. The reverb makes this record feel a little more cavernous, which adds to the beauty factor, and the PA effect doesn't make her vocals sound terrible like on a certain record that would come 9 years later, cough, my beautiful dark twisted fantasy, cough, cough. She uses both on It's Not Up to You to great effect to help achieve whatever emotions she wants to get across. Production's amazing on this record. Period. I don't know what else to say. It's good. The composition is immaculate and beautiful. It somehow balances minimal and maximal effortlessly. Of course, the backbone of this whole record is the backing programmed beats. These are often fairly low-key, at least to start, with little quirky beeps and boops here and there to make things interesting. This feels mechanical, but not quite soulless. I feel that this sound likely influenced the chiller aspects of pop music we see today, with acts like Billie Eilish and cultural phenomena like lo-fi beats coming out of the woodwork and into the mainstream. These are mostly quiet, but they are not afraid to get loud and bassy, like on Pagan Poetry, which oddly sounds like what The Weeknd would go on to do with his song Die For You, but, you know, prettier. But this album most notably gets louder and denser with the help of these lush string sections. These are really full sounding, but they're always gentle. They're like waves of cool, refreshing water splashing onto you. The choir helps with this epic, cavernous sound that the strings achieve. You can hear this on Harm of Will, which is a very beautiful song. I also can't go without mentioning the music box on Frosti because it's just so beautiful. It's like I'm walking through and looking at the icicles in a winter wonderland. It's just fantastic. The structure of this album is not anything all that groundbreaking. It's a pop record with a pop structure from track to track. I heard a similar vibe from most tracks here. Almost too similar. I got a little bored on my first listen because these tracks have very similar, calm, slow, sensual vibes to them. There are faster, louder tracks to break up this monotony, however, which is alright. Also, the lightness is broken up by the darkness of A Thorn, a Stain, while still fitting with the vibe of the record. But this album is not necessarily one-dimensional, nor is it a particularly diverse record. It is, however, one of the most calming and beautiful records I have heard in a very long time. It makes me want to leave my current life so I can live in Iceland as a fisherman or something for the rest of my life, just to see scenery that sounds like this. This is the perfect winter album to throw on and enjoy. I listened to Beach House's Depression Cherry, and I was disappointed because it wasn't as relaxing yet substantive as songs like Space Song and PPP alluded to. It had the composition, somewhat, but it lacked in substance. This album does not have that problem. This album, even if it lacks in diversity and with that instantly memorable songs, this is a relaxing near hour of music, which I will always remember and will always be fond of. As relaxing as it is, there is some lyrical substance worth talking about, and it all starts with Björk herself. Her voice is often quite shy, especially near the beginning. She has this quiet sound, yet a sound that is no doubt passionate. She's clearly singing close to the mic when she has this quiet voice, which I talked about earlier in the production, but she adds a unique edge to this tone of voice. But unlike another great album that came out in the same year, Björk gets loud when the music gets loud, and it works so well. This is a quiet album with louder points, and Björk rises up to meet the ebb and flow of this record effortlessly. Amazingly. When she gets her chance to go solo as everything else behind her rests, like on Pagan Poetry with the I love him line, it's another challenge that Björk excels at. On the other hand, she builds really nicely at the end of the closer, Unison, as the music swells. She has a beautiful voice that is so full of raw passion that it sells the vibe of this album very well. Lyrics are pretty cool, if a bit out there at points. This is an avant-garde record, especially from a lyrical standpoint. There are points where she's literally singing in gibberish, which isn't the most avant-garde thing in the world, but it can get out there on this record. Heirloom is among the strangest to me. It's one of those songs that I couldn't quite wrap my head around until I started digging. Something about warm oil going down Björk's throat. It's kind of weird, but it makes her feel better, and is a clear expression of familial love. And love is the main theme of this record. But predominantly, Vespertine is about romantic love and how beautiful it is. It's written from the perspective of a Björk madly in love with someone, and it is told in a beautiful way. It describes their life and how Björk feels about the whole situation. There are a few songs about sex, but they are more often about making love and various sexual acts told in a very flowery, light way. It's kind of refreshing to hear that, given how sex is portrayed in media as something fun but often loveless. Don't get me wrong, Björk ventures into negative aspects of sex, such as An Echo Stain, but this album has a mainly positive outlook on love, and it adds to this album's beauty. Björk's head over heels for this man, and she is enjoying his company, which turns sour years later, but let's cross that bridge when we get there. For now, let's enjoy the beauty of this record and its genuine, heartfelt expression of love. Björk's Vespertine is a beautiful record that washes over me like cool ocean waves along the coast of Iceland. I find this album relaxing, but not the dumb relaxing that you can just throw on in the background. This is an album that is both unassuming and commands your attention on account of how good it is. The production is well-rounded and accommodates the ebb and flow of this record effortlessly and makes every instrument sparkle. The vocal production adds a bit of a rougher, more passionate edge to it by keeping in little things that would likely be frowned upon, then edited out in post. The composition is famously amazing. The beats are synthetic. There are glitches that give this record a bit of a haunting beauty to it, which is part of that digital vibe that makes something interesting enough to influence artists for years to come. The analog instruments such as strings and choirs are often dramatic but never overbearing, making for a cavernous sound paired with the production. Structurally, this album is not quite different from your average pop record, and it bored me in the first few listens. It breaks up this monotony with thematically and compositionally different songs that stick out like a sore thumb as they differ from the slow, pretty form of this record. But like I said, this isn't something chill to just throw on when you want to decompress, but a substantive record both compositionally and lyrically. Björk helps with this with at first shy and breathy vocals that build up to something powerful as the music swells. What's also beautiful about this record is how it is a genuine expression of love. As avant-garde and strange as this album can get, it is an act of love. Whether to Björk's boyfriend at the time, or to her family, or to us, the listener. I certainly feel that passion, and with that, I feel loved and at ease when I listen to this album. In the winter cold, this is a needed album, and it's a warm and fuzzy record to drink hot chocolate to while watching the snow fall from the window. Nice and cozy. I'm giving this one a light 9 out of 10. Do you know what you might love besides Björk's Vespertine? The sponsors of today's video! The Christened Music Podcast is brought to you in part by Denzel Smatter, host of the Denzel XI podcast, the number one podcast in the country. Denzel has produced for Toronto rappers such as Houdini, J-Neat, and Roni, and in his upcoming podcast, he talks about his craft in music production as well as what's going on in the music industry. You can listen to the Denzel XI podcast on SoundCloud as well as on YouTube if you search for Denzel XI, right over there. You can also follow Denzel on Twitter and Instagram where he uploads this podcast as well as his beats. That's the Denzel XI podcast, the number one podcast in the country. The Christened Music Podcast is also brought to you in part by The Hood Teacher and his podcast, The Evil Eyes of Toronto. The Hood Teacher is an upcoming rapper from Toronto who has been around the block. In his upcoming podcast, he talks about gang violence and politics in the streets of the Six. He is a vital voice in this city's time as gang violence rises. Class will be in session on SoundCloud. Follow the professor on Instagram at Mr. 9, INE. Look for The Evil Eyes of Toronto, or they'll be watching you. And with that, I hope you enjoyed this review of Björk's Vespertine. Thank you all so much for listening and watching. Let me know your thoughts on this record in the comments below. If you like hearing me talk music and do music, subscribe to the Martelins music channel and hit the bell so you never miss anything I put out. If you want to see more of me and my musical endeavors, you can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok at Martelins Music. If you want strictly review-related content, follow at Christened Music on Instagram. If you want all that in the kitchen sink, you can check out my website at martelinsmusic.wixsite.com/music. And before I leave you, I have music of my own that I am anxious to share with you, and it sounds just a little like...